I might bring in now, it's a good time for our political editor, Andrew Clennell, to come in. Andrew, normally, as I said, we wait for everything sort of behind closed doors that's of most interest and see how, I guess, up front leaders are, or our leader is in Anthony Albanese at his press conference. But we got a taste of, you know, how the Chinese Communist Party runs things at this press conference. Here in Parliament House, our Sky News colleague Cheng Lei was there, and they were essentially desperate not to allow any TV cameras to just get a shot, what's called a wide shot in the business, I guess, of her and the Chinese Premier.
This is extraordinary, and it's marred the day, in my view, Tom. It's an important day, or billed as an important day, seemed like an important day for China opening up and Australia-Chinese relations. But this is a bad look indeed. Cheng Lei blocked by Chinese embassy officials from seeing the joint press statement. It was a joint press statement, not a press conference showing they're not a democracy, China. They didn't want to be part of a press conference. But not only that, they wanted to block a Sky News journalist, someone who they've detained, and Australia negotiated her release after she was a Chinese television presenter. So it is a terrible look. I can tell you, having travelled to China on Anthony Albanese's trip, there were a couple of things like this that happened. Men would come up and watch my live crosses. You just have this kind of intimidation hanging over you. And there was an occasion during the President Xi bilat where an Australian official had to intervene to put a splitter in the wall because that we weren't going to have sound from that bilateral until that occurred. You saw here an Australian official trying to intervene to prevent those Chinese embassy officials from blocking the path of Cheng Lei. Let's have a look at this. Claire Armstrong from the Daily Telegraph captured this footage, as well as our own cameraman Dave Turner. Just completely tense and unnecessary, and an uncomfortable thing for Anthony Albanese as he prepares to front a press conference ahead of meeting the Chinese Premier again tomorrow. Heavy-handedness is and just it being unnecessary are the words you'd use to describe this. It has, as I say, marred the day. We already have had the protests out the front, which have been uncomfortable enough between various sides, pro-Chinese government, anti-Chinese government. But inside, there were good words from Premier Li talking about opening up with Australia. All Australians want to avoid and fear a war involving the US and China, or Australia and China. This visit has tended to let you think that sort of thing could be avoided, that China are looking to open up again. They're after our trade. They're after regular visits. Premier Li spoke about that. But then you see this example of heavy-handedness. Here's Cheng Lei speaking about it on Sky News earlier.
Well, it's typical, right, with these events, especially if they're attaching importance to the friendly facade that they're, carefully staging, that voices of discord or, the presence of someone who's a bit controversial not harm that. They went to great lengths to block me from the cameras and to flank me, and I'm only guessing that is to prevent me from saying something or doing something that they think would be a bad look. But that in itself was a bad look.
Shows really as well a complete lack of understanding of how it works. In China, the Chinese Communist Party can stop things being broadcast, can tell people what they're going to say or not say that day in the media, and thinking any sort of approach like that would work, well, it's going to have the opposite effect, isn't it? And it's receiving widespread coverage already. On the meeting itself, we're waiting to hear from Anthony Albanese. No doubt he's going to be asked about this, Andrew. And probably to clarify as well exactly what's happening with visas. We might have visa-free travel to China as Australians, which New Zealand was given a few days ago.
Well, it sounds that way, but not in the Australian statement. It was in the Chinese statement of visa waiver. They've signed various agreements on climate change and the like. We're a guest at a fair over in China in 2025, it appears, from what Premier Li's saying. So I expect the Prime Minister to say that he pointed out things he's not happy with in terms of Chinese behaviour on the open seas, etc. But that generally he's happy with the meeting. But I can't see him avoiding a question on this one, and I wonder how he will handle it. Because there's not an easy way to handle it. As I say, he's got to meet the Premier tomorrow in Perth again, and he wants to keep everything friendly, and yet we've had this display of heavy-handedness by the Chinese officials. Peter Dutton too there, interesting. You mentioned coal, the importance of coal to China. I thought that was interesting. And he mentioned the importance of opening up China, opening up in the 1970s. So making the point there to Premier Li Qiang, we want you to keep doing that. And comprehensive strategic partnership, well, that's one that's often trotted out. That's been trotted out a lot by both the Chinese and Australian sides. Disagree where we must, cooperate where we can.
Yeah, the comprehensive strategic partnership, which doesn't really hold, does it, when the pressure goes on, and we found that out. All right, well, yeah, interesting to see what Anthony Albanese has to say. Andrew, just to preempt that, I mean, if he gets up and says, oh, I haven't seen that, we know his media team have. So that just is him trying to not comment on it. But let's be really upfront, because he's going to be up in not too long. That's a line they use sometimes. Clearly, he will have been made aware of it at this point in time.
Well, if he's going to hold a press conference no doubt in Perth tomorrow, so he may as well get it out of the way and rip off the Band-Aid today, I reckon, and just say, look, it was, not that welcome, but we get on with things, or something of that nature.
Yeah, we have different systems, so on. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how do you say it's because of a different system when it's in your own parliament? I mean, I think the PMO would be just shaking their heads in disbelief at the stupidity of these Chinese embassy officials, to be honest with you. And who knows whether they're acting on orders or just, even if they're orders, it might be from the ambassador, not the Premier. I mean, it's just, you've been to an occasion once or twice, I think, with these long press conferences from the Chinese ambassador. It's just a different world, isn't it? It's a different attitude towards the freedom of the press, freedom of speech.
No, I remember asking, not the friendliest question, I guess, on what was happening in particular with the Uyghurs, and I sort of at that point thought, I'll just make sure I get out of this place. At that point, and that was only a few kilometres away. All right, fascinating to see that exchange. Anthony Albanese is coming up live in not too long, and we'll take you to that news conference. Andrew, thank you.